Long ago, in the ancient land of Israel, two armies stood facing each other. On one side was the army of Israel. On the other side was the army of the Philistines. They stood on opposite hills with a wide valley between them. The air was heavy with tension. Everyone knew a battle was coming, but no one expected what would happen next. From the Philistine side, a single man stepped forward. His name was Goliath. He was not just a soldier, he was a giant. He stood over 9 feet tall. His armor was made of heavy bronze, his spear was enormous, and his voice thundered across the valley. He shouted, "Why send whole armies to fight? Choose one man to fight me. If he defeats me, we will serve you. But if I defeat him, you will serve us." It was a simple challenge, but no one moved. The Israelite soldiers were terrified. Even their king was afraid. Every morning and every evening, for 40 days, Goliath came out and shouted the same challenge, and every day, no one answered. Now, not far from the battlefield lived a young shepherd boy named David. David was the youngest son in his family. He was not a soldier. He did not wear armor. He spent his days in the fields, taking care of sheep. He protected them from danger. He guided them. He made sure they were safe. And during those long days and quiet nights, David learned to trust God. One day, David's father asked him to take food to his older brothers, who were soldiers in the army. So David obeyed. When he arrived at the battlefield, he heard a loud voice echo across the valley. It was Goliath. David watched as the giant shouted his challenge, and he watched as the soldiers of Israel turned and ran away in fear. David was confused. He asked the soldiers, "Who is this man? Why is everyone so afraid?" They told him about the giant. They told him no one could defeat him. But David saw the situation differently. David did not see an unbeatable giant. David saw a problem that God could solve. And David said something that shocked everyone. He said, "I will fight him." The soldiers couldn't believe it. This was just a shepherd boy. But word reached the king, and David was brought before him. The king looked at David and said, "You are too young. You cannot fight this giant." But David answered with confidence. He said, "I have protected my sheep from lions and bears. When they attacked, I defeated them, not because of my strength, but because God helped me, and God will help me again." The king saw David's courage, so he agreed. He gave David his armor to wear, but it was too heavy. David could not move properly, so David took it off. Instead, he chose 5 smooth stones from a nearby stream. He placed them in his bag. He picked up his sling, and he walked toward the giant. As David approached, Goliath saw him, and Goliath laughed. He said, "Am I a dog that you come to me with sticks?" He looked at David with disgust. He saw only a boy. He saw only weakness. But David saw something else. David saw an opportunity for God to show his power. And David said, "You come to me with a sword and a spear, but I come to you in the name of the Lord." The giant became angry. He moved forward, and David ran toward him, not away, toward him. David took a stone from his bag. He placed it in his sling. He swung it around, once, twice, and then he released it. The stone flew through the air. It struck Goliath in the forehead. Everything stopped. The giant froze, and then he fell. The ground shook as the giant hit the earth. Goliath was defeated. The giant who terrified an entire army was defeated by a shepherd boy. When the Philistine army saw this, they ran away, and the army of Israel found their courage again. David had won, not because he was the strongest, not because he was the biggest, but because he had faith. David's story teaches us something important. We all face giants in our lives. Sometimes those giants are fear.
Sometimes they are doubt. Sometimes they are problems that seem impossible to overcome. And like the soldiers, it can be easy to feel afraid. It can be easy to believe we are not strong enough. But David reminds us of something powerful. Your strength is not determined by your size. Your strength is determined by your faith. David did not focus on how big the giant was. He focused on how big his God was, and that made all the difference. David was just a shepherd boy, but his courage changed everything, and his story still speaks to us today, because sometimes the greatest victories come from the most unlikely people, and sometimes all it takes is the courage to face your giant.